I can round decimal numbers. So the first prompt says round 8 and 837 thousandths to the nearest whole number. So one of the best things that we can do is identify that we are rounding to the whole number. And what does that mean? So I'm going to use my paint tool to show that means the ones place value. That's my whole number right there. Okay, so I'm going to input my digit, which is 8 point. So after the decimal in the tenths place value, I see another 8. And then in the hundredth place value, I see a 3. And in the thousandths, I see a 7. So it wants me to round to the ones. So what I'm really looking at is, okay, this in the ones is an 8. So my first number here is going to be an 8 as my baseline number. So I'm going to use my pen to show that this is my baseline. I'm starting at 8. So what is, again, we're in the ones. So we're going to add 1 more to the 8, and we're going to think my number is in between the two numbers 8 and 9. So what did I do? How did I get that 9? So I looked in the place value chart. I see an 8. So that's my baseline number. I'm in the ones place value, so I'm just going to add 1. And that's going to tell me what the endpoint number is. Now I'm going to put some other numbers underneath my baseline numbers. So I also know that this is the same as 8.0 or 0.00 or 8.000. So why did I put 3 zeros behind there? Why would I want to do that? Hopefully you're thinking because my original number started out in the thousandths. So in order for me to put my number on this number line, I need to know where it goes all the way to the thousandths. So now I have it right there in the thousandths. And I'm thinking, okay, between 8,000 and 9,000, what number would be right in the middle of that? Are you thinking 8,500? I put 8.500 for my midpoint, and that's going to help me to figure out where does my number go? Where does 8 and 837 thousandths go? So I can just like ignore the 8 and just look at the 500 versus the 837. And I know that 837 is more than that, so it's going to go over here. And so clearly I should be rounding up to the next whole number, the number 9. So I use my arrow to show that I'm going up to 9. Now, another way to do this is to take our number. So I should always check with a second strategy. I can take my number and I should identify which place value I'm trying to round to. So that one's place value. So then I'm going to look to the right of that one's place value and I see an 8. So that means that I want to round up, right? That 8 tells me, oops, I want to use the pen. That 8 tells me I want to round up. So I'm going to add 1, right? I'm going to add 1 to this existing 8 because I'm rounding up. That's what that tells me to do. So I'm going to round to the number 9. So I'm clearly showing that my answer is 9, and I've shown it using 2 different strategies. And I'm going to now move on to the next one, which is round to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase that I highlighted everything in the ones because I'm not going to the ones now. I'm going to the tenths place value. So I'm going to round to the tenths place value, and my number has also changed. So my number is now 500, oops, I keep doing that, 566 and 14 hundredths. So I'm going to start in the hundreds. There should be a 5 in the hundreds, a 6 in the tens, a 6 in the ones, a 1 in the tenths, and a 4 in the hundredths. And then this time I'm rounding to the hundredths. So I want to make sure that I identify that I am rounding to, the tenths. I'm rounding to this place value. Okay, so I see a 1 there. So that tells me that my number is going to be 566.1. And then I'm going to add a tenth to figure out what my end point is. So I just add whatever place value I'm in. So 1 more tenth than that, 1 more than 1 would be 2. So then my end point would be 566.2. And that's where my number lives. This is where my number lives on the number line. It lives between these two numbers. But it's just really hard to know what number should go right in the middle of these two. So what I can also do is I can identify these all the way out to the tenths place value. So 0.1, if there was a number behind the 1, what number would it be? 0. There's nothing there, so nothing is 0, right? So same thing with behind the 2 would be a 0. So it's kind of like saying that 1 dime is the same thing as 10 pennies. 2 dimes is the same thing as 20 pennies. And between 10 pennies and 20 pennies would be 15 pennies. So that's really helps us figure out that my midpoint here would be 566.15. And now I can think, where does my number 566.14 go? Well, this would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? So the 14 would go over here just below our midpoint. And so that clearly needs to round down to 566.1. And we want to stay in the tenths, which is why I circled the one that only goes out to the tenths place value. Now I'm going to keep this here, but now I need to think about my other strategy. So if I just look at my number, I need to identify the tenths place value. So I'm going to identify with my paint the tenths place value. Then I'm going to look to the right, and that is a 4. So remember, 0 to 4 means that we're going to round down. And if we're rounding down, that means that we just kind of like cut this one off. And then this would be my answer, 566.1. So it'd be closest to that number. So I'm showing 2 strategies. So now I'm moving on to the last one. I'm going to need this place value chart. And it wants to know if Carmen's teacher wants her class, it says class, it should say class, doesn't make any sense, wants her class to take note of the gas prices around town and round them all to the nearest whole number. So remember, like in the other two, I made sure to underline where I'm rounding to. I need to do that every single time. Where am I rounding to? In this case, the whole number. And so I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to select my paint, and I'm going to make sure that I know the whole number is the ones. That would be my whole, right? What is the whole? One whole. The ones. Carmen found these gas prices. So we have 5 and 1/10 and 1/100. And then we have 5 and 2/10 and 2/100, or sorry, 7/100, 2/10, 7/100. And then we have 5 and 7/10 and 4/100. And then we have 5 and 4/10 and 5/100. inputting all of these into my place value chart, and then I keep thinking which of these would round to 6. Okay, so I'm trying to round up to the next 6, so I really need to be looking in this place value, and I'm really just going to use that one. Are we rounding up? Are we rounding down? So this first one, you choose my pen here. Right, a 1 tells me that I round down, so that would stay at the 5, eliminate. The 2 tells me to round down, that stays at the 5, eliminate. This 7 tells me to round up, which means I'm going to add 1 to this 5, which means that it would round up to 6. And then the next one, the 4 is in the 10th place. That tells me that I'd be rounding down, which would stay at the 5, eliminate. So if I had a number line here, so I'm just going to take this. And I was putting these between 5 and, so they all start at 5, and they're between the numbers 5 and 6. So what's in the middle of 5 and $6? $5.50, right? So that would be my midpoint, $5.50. So if I was to put these numbers on there, $5.11 would be over here. $5 followed by $5.25, 27 cents, sorry. And then followed by $5.45, right? Those would all be below the midpoint, our $5.50 here. And the only one that would be above our midpoint of $5.50 would be $5.74. And so that's why that one's closer to $6, and that's why that is my only answer. So I'm making clear that that one is my answer, showing my thinking every single time. So now it is your turn to go and show me that you can round decimal numbers using 1 or 2 strategies. Definitely making sure that you're utilizing our place value chart. It matters a lot. Showing me that you know that good problem solvers underline or highlight the important words and numbers in our problem so that we can be successful in answering the problem correctly.